Chief Mike Callahan, was a man who, at 55, had seen it all, or at least, he thought he had. He had been a patrol officer for 10 years, a detective for 15, and for the last decade, the chief of police for the quiet town of Crestwood. Crestwood wasn't a place of high-stakes crime or citywide chaos. Its biggest headlines usually involved a lost dog, an exceptionally large pumpkin at the annual harvest festival, or the occasional teenager caught with a stolen six-pack. It was precisely this gentle rhythm that Mike had come to love. Today was his day off, a rare and cherished Saturday. The sun was a warm blanket over his neighborhood, a welcome change from the typical fluorescent hum of his office. He had a simple plan: drop off a book at the library, pick up a specialty coffee for his wife, Linda, from the little cafe downtown, and then spend the afternoon puttering around his garden. He was wearing an old, faded polo shirt, cargo shorts, and a pair of worn-out sneakers, an ensemble as far from his starched uniform as humanly possible. He felt anonymous, and it was a glorious feeling. He parked his trusty, and somewhat rusty, blue Ford Explorer on a side street near the coffee shop. The spot was a little tight, but he managed to squeeze in with a few inches to spare on either side. He glanced at the curb, noting the faint, almost erased line of a yellow stripe. It was an old designation, he knew, from a time when this street was part of a main thoroughfare. The current ordinance, which he had personally reviewed and signed off on, had changed it to a legal parking zone. A small, almost illegible sign was tacked to a lamppost a dozen feet away, but it was so faded it was practically invisible. Confident in his local knowledge, he locked his car and headed towards the enticing aroma of roasted coffee beans. Inside the cafe, Mike chatted with the barista, a young man named Leo who was studying criminal justice and often picked his brain about police work. Mike enjoyed these conversations, offering advice and sharing stories without revealing his rank. He paid for his wife's caramel macchiato and his own black coffee, and as he turned to leave, he saw a sight that instantly soured his good mood. A flatbed truck, adorned with the crudely painted words R&R Towing, ready to roll, was backing up to his Explorer. Two men, burly and clad in grimy work shirts, were already out of the cab. One was fiddling with the winch, and the other, a man with a thick, scowling mustache, was taking pictures of his car with a smartphone. Mike felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the kind that came with an unfolding situation. He put his coffees down on a small outdoor table and approached them calmly. "Hey there, fellas," he said, his voice even. "Can I help you with something?" The man with the mustache looked up, his expression one of bored superiority. "Yeah, you can. You can get out of the way. This vehicle is illegally parked." "Oh, is it?" Mike replied, his tone still mild. "I don't think so. This street was redesignated for legal parking 2 years ago. The old yellow line doesn't apply anymore." "Doesn't matter what the line says, pal," the mustached man retorted. "The sign says no parking anytime. See for yourself." He gestured with a thumb over his shoulder to the almost invisible sign on the lamppost. Mike sighed. He knew the sign was technically there, a relic of a past regulation. But the town council, on his recommendation, had voted to remove the outdated parking restriction. He had made sure the new ordinance was clear. He tried to reason with them. "Listen, I'm telling you, it's a mistake. The city council updated the ordinance. That sign is obsolete." The other man, younger and with a smirk, laughed. Yeah, and I'm telling you, the sign is up, and we got a call. So, unless you want to pay us $200 right now, we're hooking it up. Mike's patience, which was legendary in the department, was beginning to wear thin. He knew what these tow companies were, often predatory, looking for any excuse to make a quick buck off of an unknowing motorist. He decided to try a different tack. Look, let's not do this. My car isn't impeding traffic, and the parking is legal. I don't want to cause trouble, but I can prove it. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his driver's license, his town-issued ID card, and a small laminated card that identified him as an official city employee. The mustached man didn't even glance at them. He pushed the cards away with a dismissive flick of his hand. I don't care if you're the mayor. The fee is $200. Pay it now, or we tow. Simple as that. Mike's face remained impassive, but a flicker of steel entered his eyes. He had no intention of paying a fee for a legal parking spot. He also didn't want to pull rank and turn a minor inconvenience into a major scene on his day off. He decided to go with a different approach. He'd let them tow it and deal with them on their turf in an official capacity. He had a few hours to kill anyway, and he was curious to see just how bad this operation was. All right, Mike said, his voice dropping an octave. Go ahead, I'll come get it later. The men seemed surprised by his compliance. The mustached man's smirk widened. Suit yourself, pal. That'll be a $200 tow fee, plus a $100 administration fee, and a $45 per day storage fee. You have 24 hours to pick it up before we add another day's storage. We're located out on Industrial Way, number 14. We'll be open till 6. Mike simply nodded, watched them hook up his car with a loud clang, and drive off, leaving a faint smell of diesel in the air. He walked back to the cafe, collected his coffees, and sat down to think. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Linda. Hey honey, where are you? The coffee's getting cold. Mike sighed, a small smile playing on his lips. Just had a little hiccup. My car got towed. I'll be home a little late. I'm going to take an Uber to the lot and straighten this out. Towed. Mike, for what? Your car was parked on our street just fine. Don't worry about it, hun. It's a long story. I'll explain when I get back. Just keep the coffee warm for me. He ordered an Uber, and soon enough, a young driver named Javier was pulling up. Mike gave him the address for R&R Towing. You know that place? He asked. Javier grimaced. Oh yeah, I know it. They're a real pain. They towed my cousin's car once for a completely made-up reason. It cost him half his paycheck to get it back. Mike's interest was piqued. Really? What happened? He was parked in front of a laundromat he goes to all the time. The owners had a contract with R&R. There's a sign, but it's hidden behind a bush. They just wait until someone parks, then call R&R. It's a total scam. They're notorious in this town for being shady. Mike nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. Now he had confirmation. This wasn't just about his car. It was about a predatory business taking advantage of the townspeople. This was no longer a day-off inconvenience. This was a matter of public service. When they arrived at the R&R towing lot, Mike paid Javier and stepped out. The place was a junkyard of rusted metal and broken glass. Dozens of cars were crammed into a muddy lot, many of them looking like they'd been there for months. A grimy shack served as the main office. The same mustached man from before was sitting behind a reinforced plexiglass window, chewing on a toothpick. Mike walked in. The air was thick with the smell of old oil and something else, something metallic and burnt. "Back so soon, pal?" the man asked, not bothering to look up from a tattered magazine. "Yeah, I'm here to pick up my car," Mike said, his voice calm and authoritative. "I'll need to see your license, registration, and proof of ownership," the man grunted. "And your wallet, of course. The fee is $195. $195? I thought you said it was $200 plus the admin and storage fees," Mike said. "Yeah, well, we gave you a 30-minute grace period. Your car was towed at 1:15, and you got here before 2 o'clock. We're generous like that. That'll be $545, cash only." Mike's eyebrows rose slightly. "Cash only? That's not what your contract with the city says. It says you have to accept credit cards." The man slammed his magazine down on the counter. "Look, pal. You want to get your car back or not? I'm not playing games with you. You pay the cash, you get the keys. Simple." Mike leaned forward, placing his hands on the counter. "Let's talk about your contract, shall we? You're supposed to take pictures of the parking violation and provide them to the vehicle owner upon request. And you're required to have a clear, legible sign posted. The one you have is faded and half hidden." "I don't know what you're talking about," the man said, his face reddening. "The sign is there. We got a digital record. You were parked illegally." Mike smiled, a calm, chilling smile that he reserved for interrogation rooms. "I know you do, and I know the ordinance, and I know your company's contract with the city of Crestwood. I'm telling you now, as a courtesy, that you are in violation of that contract. You need to release my vehicle immediately, at no charge." The man snorted. "You in what army? You wanna call the cops? Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to come out here and deal with a guy who can T-park." This was it, the moment of truth. Mike stood up straight, his hands leaving the counter. He took a deep, steadying breath. "I don't need to call the cops," Mike said, his voice now a low, resonant rumble that filled the grimy office. "I am the cops. Chief of Police Michael Callahan, and you are about to have a very, very bad day." The man behind the counter froze, his jaw slack. The toothpick fell from his mouth and hit the grimy floor with a faint click. He stared at Mike's face, a face he had likely seen on posters and in newspapers, a face that was now, a bit too late, incredibly familiar. Chief Callahan." The man stammered, his bravado instantly melting into a terrified puddle. "That's right," Mike said. "You've just harassed a resident, illegally towed their vehicle, and attempted to extort them with fraudulent fees, not to mention operating a business with deceptive practices. And you're in violation of your city contract, which I, as the head of the police department, am now going to personally see is terminated." Just then, the other tow truck driver, the one with the smirk, walked in, a soda in his hand. He took one look at his boss's ashen face and Mike's stern expression, and the smirk vanished. He didn't have to be told who Mike was. He knew. "Jimmy, get the keys to the Blue Explorer," the mustached man said, his voice a frantic whisper, "now, and waive the fees." "Don't bother," Mike said, holding up a hand. He pulled out his phone. He wasn't going to just take his car and leave. This was a teachable moment. and a matter of justice for all the other people R&R had scammed. He dialed a number. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Chief, everything okay? You never call on your day off." It was Officer Miller, one of his most trusted patrolmen. "Miller," Mike said, his voice all business. "I'm out on Industrial Way, number 14, at R&R Towing. I need you to dispatch a unit out here immediately. Tell them to bring a camera and an official report form. I want to personally file a report for illegal towing, harassment, and contract fraud. Also, have them start a full investigation into this company's business practices. I want a complete audit of all their invoices and towing logs for the last 2 years. I'll meet you here." The man with the mustache looked like he was about to faint. "Chief, please. It was just a misunderstanding. We'll give you the car for free. We'll give you a credit for future tows. Anything you want." Mike looked at him, his face expressionless. "This isn't about me, son. This is about every single person you have scammed. This is about justice. The time for that misunderstanding was an hour ago, when you had the chance to do the right thing." He ended the call and tucked his phone back into his pocket. The 2 tow truck drivers stood there, paralyzed with fear, as Mike walked past them, out into the lot. He found his Explorer, still hooked to the tow truck, and waited. Within 5 minutes, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Miller and his partner, Officer Jones, got out. They were both professional, but their eyes widened in surprise when they saw the chief standing next to a towed car in a tow lot. "Chief, what's going on?" Miller asked. "My car was illegally towed, Miller," Mike said, gesturing to the scene. "I want to file a full report. I want you to go into that office and demand to see every single piece of documentation they have. I want to see their dispatch logs, their invoices, and their copies of the parking violation photos. Do it by the book. Don't cut any corners." Miller nodded, his expression now serious. This wasn't just a simple tow. This was an official command. He and Jones walked into the office. Mike heard raised voices, and then the tow company men's voices dropped to a nervous, whiny tone. Mike finally walked into the office himself, and as he did, he saw Miller and Jones staring at a thick stack of papers. "Chief," Miller said, his eyes wide with disbelief, "this is a mess. It looks like they've been double billing and even towing cars from private property without authorization." "I'm not surprised," Mike said calmly. He walked over to the stack of papers and started flipping through them. "And here's another thing. I bet you'll find that half their towing invoices have been done for non-existent violations." Mike was right. The R&R Towing Company had been using a network of informants and fake parking violation complaints to tow people's cars and charge them exorbitant fees. The signs were either fake or hidden, and they would wait until they had a full lot of cars before demanding a ransom. Mike looked at the man with the mustache, who was now sweating profusely. "You have 2 options," Mike said, his voice hard. "You can either cooperate fully with our investigation and turn over all your business records, or we can go through this the hard way, with a warrant. I suggest you choose wisely." The man, defeated and terrified, immediately began to cooperate. He handed over their computer, their digital records, and their contracts. Mike looked at the documents, shaking his head. "This is a disgrace," Mike said to Miller and Jones. "They've been preying on the people of this town for years." He ordered the tow truck driver to unhook his car, and with a final booming command, told him to get out of his sight. Mike got into his car, started the engine, and drove back home. He walked into his house, where Linda was waiting for him, a warm smile on her face. "You're late," she said, holding up his black coffee. "Here, it's still hot." "Thanks," Mike said, taking a sip. "The day off was a bust. I had to deal with a couple of idiots." "What happened? Really?" Linda asked, her eyes searching his. Mike smiled, a genuine, content smile. "I took care of it. A lot of people are going to get their money back, and a couple of people are going to jail. It was a good day, all things considered. It reminded me why I love this job." Linda nodded, understanding. "Just when you thought you'd seen it all," she said. "Just when I thought," Mike agreed. He sat down on the couch, took another sip of his coffee, and began to tell his wife the whole story. It wasn't a thrilling tale of a high-speed chase or a major bust, but it was a good one. It was a story about justice. And that, to Chief Mike Callahan, was the best kind of story there was.